Hey everybody, John Brown here, and it's been a long time since I've done a review, and I'm sorry for that, but to make up for it, I have a special guest today.
Hello, I'm Ian Brown.
Yeah, Ian's been with me on a few of the videos. It's been a while since he's been on those, so we're excited to do a video together. And today we're going to be doing Fresco. It's a worker placement game, but it has some interesting and unique ways in which they work, including deciding what time you want to get up. So let's talk about how to play the game, and then we will both share our thoughts on what we think about it. Alright, here we see a game of Fresco set up for a 3-player game. There are special rules that you can play with 2, when it introduces kind of a dummy player. So we see this is the unpainted Fresco. Underneath all the tiles is the actual Fresco, and in order to paint each one of these sections, it shows which colors of paint you're going to need. The bottom colors, the primary colors, are a little bit easier to get, and then the secondary colors are something that you can potentially buy, but you can also mix to get those colors. They're a little bit harder to get, and the tiles that have those tend to be a little bit more valuable. There is all the different colors available up there, and then there is an expansion where you can add tertiary colors as well. So we've got our money, and we've got our player set up, and then each player is going to start with 2 different player screens. So they're going to have one that hides their paints and their money, and one that hides where they're actually going to place their workers. Because this is a worker placement game where you don't place your workers on the board, you actually decide where they're going to go in secret, similar to the Dungeon Pets or something like that, where each round you're going to be deciding that on your own. So the first thing that each player is going to do in a round is pick what time they're going to wake up in the morning. And this is going to have a positive or negative effect on their workers. So in the first round, people will be drawn out randomly as to which color will go first, and then from then on, the player who has the least number of points in each round will get to go first. Interestingly enough, if you land on the same place as another player on the score track, whenever that happens, you choose whether to go ahead of them or behind them. So players throughout the game will never have the same score. And sometimes you will choose to go behind them because it will allow you to choose first which time. Now the thing is, whenever you choose a time, it will have an effect on your workers. If you force them to get up at 5 in the morning, it will affect their mood -3. Also, paints are going to be more expensive to buy. Each paint you buy when you go to the market will cost 4. And as you progressively get up later, your workers will have less negative effects or even positive effects, and paints will also cost less. But you'll have less to choose from, and we'll talk about how that works later. This helps you keep track of where your mood of your workers are, and if you ever get to -1, your workers are so upset they leave, and you actually lose one of your 5 workers for that round. Or if you ever get into +1, you get this worker who's heard about how great your work conditions are and come help you out for that round. So after you determine what time you're going to wake up, everyone places their workers. Now Ian's going to talk about each of the locations you can send your workers to. So in a round, a player can place their 5 workers on these different spaces, and they can place more than 1 worker in a space if they want, or spread them out across the board, whatever they want to do. So the first place here, Ian, this is the market stall. What do you do when you go to the market?
Well, when you go to the market, this also depends on the time you woke up. So sometimes tiles will cost more or less. You can buy from any market, but once you are done, that place shuts down.
Yeah, so you can buy, depending on how many workers you send. If you send 1 there, you can only buy 1, but if you send 2 workers or 3 workers, you can buy more in a place. But like Ian said, it totally shuts down. So if you were to buy this orange one, and that's all you bought, then these other ones go away, and the players now have less choices. So that's why getting up, it's more expensive, but it can potentially get you what you want. And every round, what's going to happen with these? Yeah, because every round we're going to throw these in the bag, and then they're going to come out. So the market's going to be very different. The choices you have are going to be different each round as to what may be available. So maybe, something that's in the market with only 2 is going to be really good, or maybe, that will determine how early you want to get up. So the second place here, so what does that do in our second choice here?
Well, you can paint one of the places. Up above the different paints you need is the points.
Yeah, so it shows you how many points you'll get, and then what paints you need to paint it. But what's that guy in the middle?
That guy in the middle is the
bishop?
The bishop.
Yeah. So what's he do?
Well, he goes to this, once you, say you clear this one, he'll move.
Yep, so if you paint that one, you'll take this tile, and then after you paint it, you'll go inspect your work. Now, whenever you paint, though, do you remember you can do something special with him? Because you want him to see what you paint. So you can pay 1 coin, and you remember what you can do with the bishop if you pay 1 coin before you paint?
You can move him 1 space.
Yep, you can move him 1 space, any direction, even diagonally. And do you remember how many points, if he's on the tile you paint, do you remember how much that is?
3 additional
points.
You
get 3 additional points. Or if he's next to it, what happens?
You get 2, probably.
Yeah, you get 2 points. So you can choose to spend 1 taller, they're called, and we start with 12 in the game, and there are ways to get more money. But if the bishop is close to or on the tile you paint, you'll get some more bonus points. But even if he isn't, even if we paint way up in the corner, he'll move there after we paint a tile. And then again, you can choose to paint more than 1 in a round. Alright, so then there's the painting portraits option. So this one actually is pretty simple. What happens if you send a worker there?
You get 3 money for depending on how many workers you send.
So you could send 1, 2, or 3 to get 3, 6, or 9 money. So that's going to be one of the main ways to get money. But if you notice, whenever we painted this tile and I flipped it over, it had this 1 taller on it. So you remember how that works?
That's your income.
Yep.
For each round, you get the amount of money.
Yep, so the other main way you're going to get income is that at the beginning of each round, for every fresco tile you've painted, you're going to continually get that for the rest of the game. So that's one reason why potentially painting stuff early is a good idea, because it's going to earn you a lot more money during the game. Alright, so next we have the mix paints. And here's a key thing I'm going to remind people over here. It says ×2, because each worker you send there, what can you do when you send a worker there?
You can mix 2 paints together.
Yep, and there's a chart on this player board that shows you, and it's your basic mixing of primary colors, but if I had a bunch of the primary paints, I can mix them together to get the secondary paints, and for each worker I send there, I can mix 2 paints basically. And then the last space is the theater. So what does that do? The
theater has an effect on what mood your workers are in. The theater gives +1 mood.
Actually, +2 mood for each guy.
+2?
Yep.
If you're in a bad mood, you might want to use the theater. It's really going to help you.
Yep, so if I'm the red player, I can let my workers be lazy and slack off and go to the theater instead of working. So maybe I want to get up early next round and I'm worried I'm going to lose a worker, so I can send 2 guys to the theater and move up 4 spaces on there. So next round, even if I get the -3, I'm still not going to lose a worker. Now, I spent 2 of my 5 guys that round doing it, but it is something you can do to help improve mood. Every round we're going to do that. We're going to choose what time to get up. We're going to secretly place all of our guys, and then we're going to reveal. And the interesting thing is, whoever got up earliest gets to take all of those actions first. So if you went to paint fresco tiles and someone else went there, if you got up earlier, you might take the tile that they potentially wanted. So getting up early has a lot of advantages. It doesn't really matter so much for mixing paints or the theater or just getting money. There are expansions, though, that make things like painting portraits and that a little bit more interesting as far as what time you got up. And then we'll go through each one of these actions in order. So notice you can buy paints before you go to paint the fresco, but you can't mix them. So you sometimes have to plan ahead a little bit with mixing paints and doing that. I'm going to do that until a round starts where there are 6 or less tiles on the board. When that happens, then that'll be the final round. And then so things will change a little bit in the final round. One more side thing to note too, and this comes up more often in the final round, but it can happen during the game. If there are tiles, if you went to go to paint tiles and you can't, you can always use one of each color or add secondary colors to get 2 points or more points if you throw in secondary colors, or use all 3 to get 6. That is not as good of a return as it would be to actually paint tiles, but maybe the only tile that you could paint went away and you weren't able to do it. On the last round, we're going to flip over this board, and you'll notice here on this board, things are a little bit different. There's no way to go to the theater, because it won't matter, it's the last round of the game, but there are 2 opportunities to go and paint at the chapel. So you can potentially do a lot of that in the last round if you've saved up some paints. And then at the end of the game, you'll also get a point for each 2 tallers you have, but paint is worth nothing. So that's why it's important to make sure that you go and get enough done, even if you're just helping out with the altar, as those side bonuses are, that you're doing stuff with your paints in the final round. Okay, so that's just the base game of Fresco. If you get a Fresco game now, it'll actually come with 3 little expansions, and then there are, I believe, something like 10 expansions now or something like that. Just to give you an idea, here is the box, and all of this stuff is not currently out. I still have the game out, I haven't put it away. So this is all stuff that add complexity to different aspects of the game, or add different choices or things like that. Now, you probably don't want to play with all of them, but you can add a few here or there. And like I said, I think the first 3 come in the game, and then you can go out and get more. So this is a pretty light game initially, and then you can add as much complexity to your stuff as you want. So let's talk about what we think about it. First of all, I really like the wake up idea. I think it's neat. We kind of joke, there's only 1 bathroom, so we have to choose what time we get up, and it makes our workers grumpy when we get. I mean, do you think what things do you like about the game? Do you like that, or is there other stuff you like?
It's actually just a pretty good all-around game. Like, there's all different types of things.
Hey, you can talk to the camera.
So even the color mixing, and it's also fun to use strategy. You need a bit of strategy, what time you're going to wake up, to what paints you need to get.
Well, and like Ian said, it's a good all-around game, and that's a good way of putting it, because this is a game that you can play with just about anybody, especially if you play the base game initially. It's pretty simple, but there's still a lot of interesting choices. Deciding when to get up is so important, because is someone else going to take what you want? Maybe you think they won't, and they do, or maybe they don't, and you're like, woohoo! So you have a lot of those little moments, even in the base game. It's simple enough, and at the same time gives interesting decisions. So yeah, I think that's what I like about it. Another thing I really like is the simultaneous action. We're not doing a thing where I'm putting a guy on the board, then Ian's putting a guy on the board, then Steve's putting a guy on the board, whatever. We're all deciding on our own, then we just lift up and do it. So it actually plays pretty quickly too. Yeah, man, I've noticed that. I don't know. I think that's kind of neat. That especially once you're used to it. You can go through a round, and sometimes you have those rounds where you really got to think about where you want to go, but. Overall, that simultaneous action lets the game move pretty fast. So overall, I can't really think about any complaints of the game. Like I said, the theme might not be exciting for some people, but I find it interesting. I like unique themes. I haven't used all the expansions. I've only played around with a couple of them so far, but I like that idea that you can add in 1 or 2 here or there each time you play. Much like Alhambra is a game that if you get the big box or buy the expansions, you can do that with. About the only negative things I can say, it only goes up to 4, so a lot of games will go up to 5, so that's kind of a bummer. If you've got a bigger group, it may not work for that. And if you're playing 2-player, you have to use a dummy player sort of thing. It's not that complicated, but it really does help if you're going to play 2-player, because it, each round somebody gets to be Leonardo, the dummy player, and so they're going to be choosing a wake-up time and blocking different things out. So, that's a big advantage for the person that round to be able to do that. And, they're going to paint a tile and score points in that, so the turn order might change with the dummy player too. So it doesn't add a lot of complexity to the game, and you can check out, Rahdo's run-through of that if you want to see how the 2-player game works. So I think overall we think, this is just a pretty neat game. It's, simple with interesting decisions. It's easy to pick up on, but it's still a lot of strategy, as to pointing out. I remember when Ian played the first time, you saved up a lot on the last round. You had a big move, but that's dangerous too, because maybe the tiles you want to go away and you're not getting that income. But so there's even strategies. I've seen people play big money strategy where they save up a lot of money to get points for that at the end of the game too. For a game that's pretty simple, there's unique ways to play it, and overall it's a game we like quite a bit, so we suggest checking it out. Cool? Cool. All right.